Spawnomy is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness, because we are the culture. Welcome to Chicago, y'all.
Yo, what up, everybody? This is the Spawnomy podcast with Khalif Adams. I'm your host, Khalif Adams. I am excited to be here for episode 538 of our show. We are rocking here live in Chicago, bringing you some of the best and brightest in the world in terms of conversations around video games, around black culture, brown culture, all cultures that are here to dig into the dopeness that we have on the planet. One of the best podcasts in the gaming space. I'm happy that you were all here and rocking and sharing your time with me tonight. If you missed any of our coverage from this week, we had a banger South of Midnight preview that's on our YouTube channel and on our podcast feed. We had a banger of a interview with Carrie Patel, game director from Avowed. We have a banger in our review that just went up as of today, which is Thursday, the 13th of February. Please go check out the content that's on the feeds. We are doing really well this week. We've had almost 200 new subscribers on our YouTube channel. We're almost at 6,000, which, again, I have neglected our YouTube content for a very long time, and I've kind of started to get back into the mix of trying to put up episodes and stuff. So, going to try to continue to do that work and put up more episodes as well. Besides kind of, preview and review content, I'm hoping to put all of these episodes again back up and make sure we're doing that stuff. But it's been a fantastic week for us in terms of Spawnomy. It has not been a fantastic week in terms of my health. I just came back from LA, from the Split Fiction preview that we got a chance to go check out down in LA with our friends over from EA and Hazelight. And you can hear it in my voice. I am flabby. I am sick. And usually I have a whole thing where you can hear me kind of inhale through my nose on the podcast. I don't know how to get rid of it. I don't know what to do with it as a human being. I don't know how to fix it. It makes me mad every time I listen to my own show because I'm like, oh my God, that man's nostrils are huge. He's he's just sniffing all into the microphone. I have a gate on this microphone. It's like the compressor and everything is like, nah, your nostrils, son. They just bleed through all the stuff. So I apologize in advance if I'm extra heavy nostrily today, but I'm trying to breathe and it's all happening at the same time. So I'm trying to breathe, trying to be entertaining, trying to talk about things, but I have like no breath control tonight. So expect a not super mega long show tonight because I'll just die from self-asphyxiation. That being said, again, check out the feeds. Please go make sure you're checking us out on Spotify and hitting us up there. Follow us on the show there. Follow us on self-asphyxiation. Yeah, somebody in the chat was like, is that a word? Yeah. Well, I mean, the self-asphyxiation may not necessarily be a full term, but asphyxiation is a word. Come on, chat. You got it. I have a smart chat. My community of Spawnomy Chicago fans is smart. You can't tell me you don't know what asphyxiation is. If you are, we got to fix you for that. Anywho, go make sure you're checking out stuff on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're following us on all the places that we are rocking. Shout out to the fan Walt in the chat as well, who runs the amazing health and fitness community and app, Infinite. We've been doing some work together. I have been a scrub at my job of losing weight and not paying attention, but he's a beautiful human being who we're going to talk to in an upcoming episode and bring him on to talk about all the things that he's working on. So if you're looking to get your body and mind in shape, definitely hit up Walt. He's good people. Anyway, we're going to talk about Split Fiction, and we're going to talk about the state of play that dropped this week from Sony. But first thing we're going to do is get into the 411. So, first up on the 411, I had the pleasure of going down to LA this week for a very special event held by EA and the folks over at Hazelight to showcase an initial preview of their game Split Fiction, which is basically I wouldn't say a sequel to It Takes Two because it's not directly connected, but it is a testament to the kind of co-op gameplay that they have been known for and have really, I think, changed the game on in terms of what they've been working on and things that they've been doing in their wheelhouse of kind of gameplay and understanding of how that co-op experience, that very, very special couch co-op experience has kind of grown on people. And I think, their ability to pull in something really interesting from a, co-op perspective, from a story perspective, all of those things combined to give you what we got a chance to check out in Split Fiction this week. I got a chance to play almost 4 hours of Split Fiction, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I'm not even going to try to bury the lead. I'm just going to say it out loud. Split Fiction and the time that I had at a preview playing this game was the best preview I've had in a very long time. I have been playing games. I've been doing this work for over a decade. I've gone to see many, many previews. I've gone to see many games. I've reviewed many games. I've played everything under the sun that I can possibly play. And Split Fiction was one of the most fun experiences I have ever had. And I think that goes beyond just the gameplay aspect, because I think it really did kind of pull together the missing link, which is sitting next to someone else on the couch, vibing out, playing the game, talking crap, being in that space and enjoying the company of somebody else while playing a thing and coordinating and understanding, just how much you have to kind of, pay attention to your partner in those moments. We played this thing. I had a buddy at EA who sat there because I kind of rolled in solo. They paired people up at the event, and gave each of us a controller, and you basically pick which side that you want to be on, and then you start to roll through it. It's this really cool additional story of these two characters who go into this basically like publishing hall, like book publishing hall or story publishing hall. And they go into this hall. They meet the owner of the company, and they're basically like, these two characters are trying to get their games and their stories published. And each character has a different angle that they're trying to go towards. One is looking to kind of embark on and publish a kind of more sci-fi kind of story, and the other one is trying to do one more in the fantasy space. They wind up having an accident within the lab, and they wind up getting pushed into this space where they basically do like The Fly, and they kind of merge together their worlds. And if you're watching the video version of the show tonight, you'll be seeing this on YouTube and Spotify. All the gameplay you're seeing right now is all gameplay that we took from our session. So this is me playing alongside my partner. I'm the person on the left, and they are the person on the right. And this game is going to be a Game of the Year contender. Like, if this game does not get into the running for Game of the Year, it is. I give everyone the permission to throw eggs. No, don't throw eggs because there's like $7,000 an egg. Throw tomatoes, which is still cheap, at the screen, at whatever you need to, because this game is so fantastic. It's not because just of the co-op stuff. It's not the usual things you think of when you think of like, oh, graphically this thing is really crazy, or it's doing something out of the norm in terms of story or any of those things. What makes this game so dope and so amazingly cool is it's like every genre of game that you can think of, they have packed into this one title. So think about it as like you are playing a side scroller, you're playing a pinball game, you're playing like almost like isometric Frogger, you're playing like Mega Man, like all of these kinds of genres of games are all within this one title, and each one of these experiences all feels amazingly cohesive. Like the thing that is hard to do is to make a game in general, because you're usually sticking to one specific genre, one specific formula for what you're trying to do in terms of game mechanics, and trying to figure out good ways to build upon those mechanics throughout the game. What's cool about Split Fiction is each moment that you're in, you're learning a new mechanic that is solely for that section of the game. Some stuff may potentially carry over because we were jumped around in between different kinds of levels, but like everything from, again, like side scroller stuff to almost a like Donkey Kong barrel throwing thing was in the mix. There was a skiing level that felt like SSX tricky. Like there are so many cool moments in this game that wrap around the discussion of those two genres of story, both sci-fi and fantasy, that they get to play in all these different spaces, and it's freaking nuts. It's wild to be able to see how much stuff that they're able to get away with and stuff that they're able to do in this one game, while also being a co-op game, while also being funny and being interesting. Like they tackle and dig into meme stuff, like internet culture stuff. Like there's so many pieces of this game that really come through that it's like, it's nuts. And you're doing separate things as these characters. Like, you know, in this one section that we're showing, I'm flying the ship and my partner is shooting a gun on the back of it to be able to get some bad guys away from us. And it does it in a way where you're just kind of moving between these spaces. I want to see what it looks like when we're playing the full game and you're kind of going in between these spaces from story bit to story bit. The fact that we got jumped around a lot was cool because it gave us a lot of things to be able to check out and look at, and give us a bunch of different scenarios and opportunities to check out the game from multiple facets. But like everything that we played was amazingly fun. And it was that thing where, you know, me and my co-op partner, we're talking all the time. We're like, yo, if you can get this person off my back, you know, I can shoot this thing. I can steer the plane. If you can get to the spot where we need to get to, you know, oh, we have this puzzle that's coming up. You move your thing on this left side. I can move my thing on the right side. It's like so cool to be able to see all of those pieces come together around a really interesting story, but also something that just feels like all of those connective genres and connected story beats all feel like it's one big universe, but all very, very disparate in the way that it kind of plays, but different and familiar if you're a game player and a person who's played games forever. It is freaking ridiculous how much Haze Light has put into this game. It is freaking ridiculous how well and how smartly they've decided to add these genres and to talk about the way this game plays. Sorry, I had to sniffle. But this game is doing something very special. Like Haze Light is really killing it. Like the wild thing is, like, I am so excited by what this game is doing. I didn't get a chance to play It Takes Two. I'm gonna go back and play it with my wife. But like this game, man, like I just can't throw enough kudos at what this game is doing and what Hazelight is doing. Like the way they do perspective changes and, you know, adding these moments of just like pure unadulterated fun. Man, this game is going to be good. Like this game is definitely going to be a game of the year contender. Like if it doesn't, I'm going to be mad. Because it's so stupid that it wouldn't. I'm just going to kind of skip through some stuff so people can see it when you're watching the videos. And if you're listening on the audio, please go make sure you're watching the video stuff. But like, all of it just feels super comprehensive, super smart. Like all of it feels like I would love to have sat in the room when they decided and went through the list of, all right, so we're going to put this in the game and we're going to put this genre in the game and we're going to try this on this level. And, you know, how does this play into the sci-fi universe? How does this play into the fantasy universe? And everything just fits. Like nothing feels out of place. Nothing feels like it's not paying attention to the mission of the game, which is to kind of pull all these things together in a way that makes sense, you know, like, and it has a little bit of dark humor in it too, which I think is freaking dope. Like there's some moments where, you know, for a game like this, usually games like this are kind of aimed at or kind of marketed to, you know, younger players or players who would be in a space who are not, you know, what you would think of as kind of typical, hardcore players in those ways. But like this game has wild stuff in it. Like you're shooting some of these enemies and like you're shooting actual enemies. Like there's blood and guts. Like it's crazy that they have that stuff in here while also this game being wildly funny and like super smart in the way that it addresses controls and the way that it addresses you know, the way that those characters interact with each other. Like there's a mission that I'm showing right now on camera where you're kind of splitting the difference between you and your co-op partner, where one of them is holding a katana and kind of slashing through areas and basically rotating the map with this kind of laser whip that they have, so that your other partner has the power of magnetism, and they can grab things and kind of throw them around the map and do certain kinds of actions and things in the space. It is so fun. It is so ridiculously good. It is so beautiful too. Like it is a pretty game. Like this game is stunning. This game is so freaking awesome. And they have like, again, moments of levity, moments of like hardcore gameplay stuff, moments that are just like, all right, puzzles and like legitimate, okay, how do we as a team get together and kind of get through this mission stuff? Like, you know, there's a section where you turn into a pig and you're farting all over the place to get around the map, you know, and it splits you up into these two different characters who are doing these very specific things. And again, each one of those is super cool. Like it's super nuts. It does wild stuff that you would not expect to be in a game like this, but it all works. It never feels out of place, and it always feels like you have, you know, jumped into a new level, but a part of a bigger world, and that bigger world is just there to kind of just have fun in it and to play around and observe and to explore and to figure that stuff out. One of the cool things about this is that basically one person needs to buy the game, and that one person who has bought the game can then basically, you know, invite another player to play with them. So you don't have to buy 2 copies of it. You only have to buy one, and another person who wants to play with you can jump in and play the game alongside you. They did this with It Takes Two, and it's a really smart way to, you know, make sure that basically you're going to have a player base, right? You're going to have people who are going to check things out and be able to kind of go through the missions and things with you and just like dig into that game with you and have fun. Like, man, it's so good. It is so freaking good. I left that thing. We were screaming, we were hooting, we were hollering, we were having a blast. So much so that the PR teams were like, "Yo, could we record, you two playing, because this is stupidly fun. Hearing you all have as much fun as you're having." And sadly we couldn't, because we were, the person who I was talking to or playing with, we're both industry folks, so we were talking like industry shop. And the way the recording would have happened, it would have captured all of that stuff, because we were telling secrets and stuff and digging into all those things. And we don't want that stuff in the video. We could have it, but if I'm going to put this out on the internet, we can't have people talking about stuff that we were talking about. But like, again, tongue-in-cheek comedy, brilliant gameplay, super fun and interesting ideas around how gameplay works. And all of it was just so much fun. I did not want to leave. It was a game where I was trying. I was like, man, do we have to, like, I know the thing is about to go down. Like, I know it's about to end, but like, can we finish up a couple more rounds of some stuff? Like, we were playing and other teams of people were playing, and we were trying to like race them in our own minds and be like, oh man, if we're able to finish this before them, that would be super cool to be able to do that. But like, the game doesn't take itself seriously, but it's having fun at its own expense, while giving you the ability to also kind of like, engage with it and just like play around with the world. I love this game. This game is going to be a banger. This game is going to be like a ridiculous amount of time played on this thing. It's like, again, nuts how much stuff you can do in this game and how much it all plays together for the larger story. Like, if you love fun, like people talk a lot about like, well, games are kind of whatever these days, and X, Y, and Z, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I have not had this much fun playing something that feels so complete and feels so fun and so interesting. And I was like, we played 3 to 4 hours, and I didn't even scratch the surface of some of the stuff that we got a chance that's in the game. Like, there's a ton of stuff that we didn't see, and we played through like 6 different genres of stuff in a 3-hour span. Like, this game, I'm hoping is going to be like 10 to 15 to 20 hours, because man, this thing is so good. So we had a freaking blast playing this thing. This game is awesome. I got a chance to meet Joseph Fares, famed game awards cusser and developer. He's super nice. He's actually really he's a sweetheart. It was funny, after the Game Awards last year, my wife and I went to the Santa Monica Pier, and they have like an arcade space, and they have like you can go on amusement park rides and stuff like that. And he and his wife were there, and I didn't want to bother him, so I just said hello and congratulated him on the game being announced and stuff. And then it was kind of cool to see him a couple months later. So we're working on getting him on for an interview. The way that the interviews worked during the event were group interviews, and group interviews aren't really great if you're trying to make content out of them, because you have to snag other people's audio, and you have to make sure that you're not crossing over and getting their audio and your audio. So we asked them to find some time to get Joseph on the show proper and have him talk to me about the game, because I have so many questions of like, how did you even come up with this concept for this kind of a game, and what were some of the inspirations for this thing, because it is all over the place, but it is all over the place in the best way. And I didn't even put up the other content because I had to basically reformat it to fit into our streaming program. But like, you can see the pinball stuff in the other file that we have for it, and the other content that we have. So I'm trying to debate what's the best way to put this out, to find a good in between ground for it. But man, I have to say, most impressed with this thing. There's going to be so much fun to be had. I will definitely stream this with somebody else if they want to play. And this feels like the perfect kind of in between game where you can have of super polished, like really smart, eye-hand coordination, challenging kind of game that is just fun and interesting and smart and funny. And, I love the main characters. The main characters are kind of beefing with each other a little bit. They kind of don't like each other at first, but they kind of see that they need each other. One of the things I did say to him, or at least the team, was, you have this science fiction and this fantasy setting. Seeing how well all of these things work, man, I could see another version of this game where you dig into more genres and it would instantly work. Like, there's no way it wouldn't work. You could do horror, you could do sports, you could do a bunch of stuff, and it would just work because the way that they've thought about those different pieces that go along with it, it's just freaking brilliant. Like, Haze Light should be Studio of the Year in my mind with what I got a chance to play. I am absolutely over the moon about what this game has been. Second and last story of the show, this is going to be a very short show because I can't breathe, is all about the State of Play. Sony State of Play dropped this week, and they had a bunch of games on the showcase that they shared. I try to go into those things with an open mind. I try to go into those conversations with an understanding of like where they are currently in the space, like where they are based on the year, where they are. Like, this is me talking about PlayStation. What's the kind of vibe of the room? Because everyone has been having these conversations about Sony needs games after we've seen some games in their portfolio not necessarily do well, and we've seen games in their portfolio not be made because of live service conversations and live service worries and fears. So that has moved over to a lot of people wondering, like, what's the future of Sony look like for 2025? Like, we know some games are going to be dropping, but like we are not seeing a signaling that we have a lot of games to be excited about moving forward. And that's I think it's a reasonable observance of where we are right now with the Sony platform. Like, I think they got a lot of goodness in with the PlayStation 5 Pro being in. They got a lot of hype in the space about it, and we still are kind of, trying to determine if that's going to really be the driver that they had hoped. And so far, it doesn't feel like it is from a finances perspective and from a kind of zeitgeist thing, because the power of the console hasn't necessarily proven worth the money. But this was their first showing after what Xbox had put on in their Dev Direct, which I think most people were saying was a banger and a big success. You have Sony coming out this week with their version and their first, jump into the pond to give us an understanding of what was happening for this year. So Monster Hunter Wilds, I'm just going to go through some of the games I thought were the most impressive and some of that stuff, I think, and then talk about overall what my thoughts were. Monster Hunter Wilds, really, really good. We know what that game is. I have some preview coverage about that stuff from Summer Game Fest, so we knew that was a main property in the space. Then they came out with Shinobi Art of Vengeance, which, Shinobi has name recognition. I think Shinobi has an understanding that people know what that game is supposed to be. I don't think that game, though, from a visual perspective, looked that impressive. So they're kind of banking on nostalgia for what that game is going to wind up being. But the problem winds up being is like Ninja Gaiden Black 2 came out already. Again, different art style, different everything. But like, it looks cool, but it does, like, there are so many games that are like it. I don't know how you differentiate that in a much bigger way outside of the name and what the name of Shinobi means, which for my generation has a ton of, fond memories around. But like, if you ask anybody who's under the age of 30, I doubt that they really know what Shinobi is and what it's supposed to be. You know, I love the art style. I think the art style looks good. I think it looks really pretty, but I don't know if that's going to be a game that's going to get people excited in a way that is going to be, you know, different. So that's going to be interesting to see where they land on that. So I think that, you know, that's a potential win for them in some form or fashion. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds came up as well. I love Sega. I think Sega is great. I haven't cared about a Sonic game in forever. I still don't understand why they're still putting out Sonic games at this point. I know there's a huge fandom for it. I know the movies push a lot of stuff there, but like, you're not going to get me hyped about a Sonic racing game or a Sonic game at this point. Like, I get it, but that ain't it for me, brother. And then they had a Digimon game. Again, when I heard the word Digimon, I was like, okay, all right. Like, okay. You know, I'm supposing that there's still a big fandom here for this. And I'm assuming that is continued to grow since I was a kid. Like, Digimon was a thing that came out when I was in junior high school, you know, like, God, 20 something years ago or something like that. And they're continuing to make stuff in that space and in that genre and more in that space. But like Digimon Story, I don't think was a game that was the banger that I was hoping for. Next up was Lost Soul Aside. I think also one of our chatters, Mr. Hawk, says, not hyped about a Sonic racing game. Have you no heart? I do. I want people to take all of my critiques with a grain of salt, right? Like, I am always looking for something really interesting and something that is not genre defining, because that's too hard of a kind of label to hit or a mark to hit. But like, there are too many dope developers out here with so many ideas that it feels like we really do go back to the same thing over and over and over again. And like, the Sony State of Play this year had basically almost 2 to 3 Souls-like-esque games. Lost Souls Aside, which we heard about some years ago, is now going to finally get, you know, a launch date in terms of May 30th. But like, I don't know if I'm still in the space to care about Souls-likes right now. Like, I want someone to do something different in the genre. Like, I'm excited about the Black Desert game. I think that's the name of it, Crimson Desert. Because that looks a little bit different and they're doing some interesting things there. Like, this is doing something graphically very different. But like, it feels like the same, we're going to do these, you know, creatures that are amalgams of all these pieces of stuff around the world, and you kind of look like a dragon hunter, but you also are trying to look suave and da, da, da. Like, I just feel like the Souls-like space is played right now. Like, it's just too much stuff in that space for me to really care about those games in that way. So Lost Soul Aside didn't really get me excited. Also was Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I am currently playing that game right now. So playing through that as well while I play through a couple of other games for review. So definitely going to jump into that and see where that game lands. I've never really been a big Yakuza fan, so I'm trying to work my way through it and try to figure out what it is. I'm waiting for that moment for a Yakuza game to really click with me in a way that feels where I'm like, oh, I finally get it. Oh, you have a huge fandom, a huge fan base here. Excuse me, I finally get it. That hasn't really happened yet, so I'm waiting for it. Splitgate 2, which I have a preview of. Hopefully soon. I got a chance to talk to the development team in a preview session. I didn't get a chance to play because I was playing through Avowed at the end of the week. So hopefully going to be able to do some of that. WWE 2K25. Shout out to them for getting Paul Heyman in the in their promo ad. That was the biggest announcement. It was like, oh crap, Paul Heyman is in this thing. That's dope. Like, that's cool. Also, I think 2K is stepping over. I'm gonna pause the video that I'm playing in the background, and I actually pause it on the perfect spot. So, like, if you're watching the video version of this, or you're listening on the audio version of this, they're doing this new thing, which is like an island that is themed around Roman Reigns. You know, the one true tribal chief. I recognize you, Roman Reigns. You are my tribal chief. And you automatically can see where they're going. Now, what I'm worried about is they have, and we're showing this on screen now, they have a Nike and a Jordan brand in WWE. What in the hell does that have to do with anything? That has absolutely nothing to do with stuff. I mean, they do wear the stuff. Shout out to Wheelie Advantage, Wheelie Average. I'll talk to you in a second about what you're sharing in the chat. But like, that automatically tells me that they're going to try to get you for every dollar that you have. And I'm not happy about that, because I like in concept some of the stuff that they're trying to do. Because if you look at the video, they do some really interesting stuff. Like, it looks like this really big open world where you have your kind of online character and you're walking through like you do in NBA 2K, this open world where you're, you know, talking to people, getting missions, all that kind of stuff, which is also like, which I also am not that big of a fan of anymore. And the premise of you being able to do what I was hoping you'd be able to do in Street Fighter 6, which is I'm going to make my created character, I'm going to run around this open world, I'm just going to pick fights with people. And hopefully the thing that I get out of those fights is some gear that I can put on my character to make my character look interesting, super, super cool, and hopefully rep for a faction or my favorite wrestler or any of that stuff. I am sure some of that is going to be in here, but like, you don't have to do that in some weird way where you're like trying to pull in all these pieces of clothes and stuff, because most of it is going to wind up being very generic. And it's not going to be that interesting. The other layer of this is the stuff that's going to be really related to your favorite wrestler is going to be hella expensive. And I understand what the mode is for 2K now when you want to build that currency and you want to build a character up. You can play a mode that gives you most of your VC and get all that stuff in that mode. I'm sure they're going to do something here for that, but like, I don't care about buying Puma stuff and Jordan stuff to be able to do that stuff. Like, the fact that they have this moment where it looks like you're wrestling other created characters looks fire. Like, that is exactly what I'm hoping for in a mode like this. Make that the thing where you have like actual competition. You can pick a fight with somebody and be like, yo, we're going to go at it in a ring. And whoever wins gets a, like, it would be cool if you can make your own belt, which you can do in the base game. Fight for your belt. Like, if I can make the Bricago belt and then be like, yo, I'm the Bricago champion. Come see me in this server for 2 hours. All comers try to take the belt. Like, that could be fire. Like, build a tournament, do that kind of stuff. But the way that they're kind of connecting the dots with the currency and the kind of like foretelling that there's going to be a big amount of like how much money you're going to have to spend, that makes me a little bit worried. I feel like this is going to be a very hit or miss kind of mode. Shout out to Stu. It was good, Stu. Kind of thing for them. I am vastly worried about what that's going to wind up being, though, in the grand scheme of things. Next up was Borderlands 4. Randy Pitchford and his crew came on the virtual stage and talked a little bit about Borderlands 4, which is going to be dropping in September. I am there day one. Borderlands is one of my favorite series. Whatever they do, that's an easy win for everybody, me included. I'm there day one, so I don't even have to talk about Borderlands that much. The game of the show, though, for me, was, at least the thing I was the most excited about, was this game called Directive 8020. So Directive 8020, made by Supermassive, the folks who've made the Dark Pictures franchise. I love Supermassive. I think their games are freaking dope. I think everything that they make is ridiculously fire. The fact that they're going into sci-fi, the fact that you're going to have all these interesting characters to talk about and talk through in a kind of horror sci-fi sense, where you're going to basically make, a Dark Pictures game, but in space. Sign me up. Day one, I want that game so bad. The characters look fire. I'm sure the story is going to be dope. Supermassive doesn't miss when they make stuff. So Supermassive's Directive 8020, I'm there. Like, I'm already reaching out to PR to be like, yo, how do we get people on the show for that? Because I want to talk about that game so bad. Wheelie in the chat says, Directive 82 is the second season of Dark Pictures, right? I did not know that. Ooh, that's cool. That's really cool. That makes it even cooler. That makes me even want to play it even more. So that's dope. Next up is Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's I don't care about. It's not a game that I care about anymore. I'm actually surprised they're still making it. I get it, but like, after you make a movie that kind of tanks like that, like, I don't care. So that thing is not really where I'm at. This game, though, that is coming up after that one, the Midnight Walk, I am there day one. Midnight Walk is a game that I am dying to play. That thing looks fire. It looks really good. And because they're building this stop motion kind of animation thing that we saw not necessarily only in South of Midnight, but like there've been a couple of games that have kind of done this stop motion thing. And the fact that you'll be able to play this in VR, that instantly made it even more appealing to me. I was like, what? I can play this on PSVR too? Ooh, that's going to be freaky to see that kind of weird animation walking to you in first person. That's going to be nuts. That claymation stuff in first person is going to be dope. I am so hyped for that game, the Midnight Walk. I want that day one. Hyped for that. That's going to be great. Next up was Darwin's Paradox. I think that's going to be cool as a platformer coming from that team. Animusha got a look as well. Warriors Abyss, I think, is in that space. It's okay. It's all right. It's decent. Animusha 2 and Animusha Way of the Sword are getting remakes for their games, or at least remasters for what their games are going to wind up being. Kind of okay. Metal Gear Delta. Man, I want that game so bad. I mean, again, I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. I'm such a big Metal Gear fan. To see how they have upped this up in Unreal 5 and seeing how pretty this game is looking in terms of all the things you remember from the genre and from the series, having that be, graphically changed up and leveled up in so many different ways. I do wonder how they're going to do stuff in terms of control schemes and things like that, because control in those games wasn't necessarily its main component. It wasn't the thing that was the telltale sign for what that thing was going to be. But I'm hoping that they took another stab at it and revisit, how to modernize some of the controls for what that game is going to wind up being. Big Snake Eater fan. Seeing Delta in here and having it look as good as this, I am instantly on board for that thing in the biggest ways. There are a couple other games that I think are really bangers in here. Hell Is Us, that continues to be one of my most anticipated games as well. Hell Is Us, I think, is going to be phenomenal. It just looks creepy as hell and super fun. That's also coming out in September. So you have Hell Is Us, and you also have Borderlands 4 coming out during that time. Liza P is getting some DLC. Liza P Overture is getting some new content. I like Liza P. Liza P as a IP is really, really cool. I like it a ton. I've kind of passed that at this point. Like, for people who are going back to that, that's cool. Like, I'm hyped for you. I don't know if I have the same need to jump back into the world of Liza P, but if it's there for some folks, totally cool. Dreams of Another was a game that I really sat up when they talked about that. I love everything that comes out of Q Games. The folks who brought the Pixel Junk games to life with director Bayon, who made one of my favorite games on the planet, I think, in 4AM. This game looks wild. This game looks like the Unfinished Swan, but with guns. But it also looks like it's made in dreams, which is nuts. Like, this game just like looks super weird and funky, and these are the games that I want Sony to continue to go back and make. Like, when Sony was at its heyday and making really funky, weird games like Echochrome and stuff like this, like, they were at the top of their list of like making the game space feel different. They had a space to be able to innovate and to find new ways to play, and we're pulling in developers who were trying a bunch of new stuff that you didn't see before. And it feels like they're continuing that with this in a much bigger way. So I'm hyped as hell for that. Because I love Bayon, I love his work and Pixel Junk and as a whole. The game that got the most why are we doing this is Days Gone Remastered. I have mad love for people at Sony Bend. There's mad people who I've met and know from Sony Bend. I think they're brilliant. I actually really do like Days Gone. I think Days Gone never really got its due because it came out too close to Last of Us. But like, I don't think anybody asked for this. Like, of all the stuff that we were like, oh man, can we get that? I don't think anybody was like, yo, I really love a Days Gone game. I just don't, like, I don't understand the thought process behind that. Besides, we need a game to come out, and we have the assets ready, and we have the space ready for it. But like, across, like, to a man, everybody who's talked about it on the internet has been like, I don't know why we're doing this. Why do we need this? I don't get it. And I'm in agreement with that. I just don't understand why they need it, or why they're making it. Sparks V says in the chat, and hey, I'll bat for it because of accessibility. Yeah, like, if you can go back to a game and add more ways for people to play, like, I appreciate that. Like, you should be doing that if you're making a remaster to modernize it in the ways you want. But I really don't know who's like hyped for that thing in those ways. Tides of Annihilation is also another game that's coming out. That looked very generic. I thought it was okay, and it looked cool, but it looked very, very generic. Lost Souls. This game actually looks really, really cool. Lost Records, I'm sorry. Bloom and Rage, Tape 1. Feels like the... what was the name of the genre of game? Life is Strange kind of game. So that's pretty rad. I love that stuff. Blueprints was a really cool game that came out of the show. That's kind of a more puzzle based, feels almost escape room-esque kind of game. That I do want to hear more information about. I think that's going to be really cool to drop very soon. So that looks real dope. And I think the other game that they talked about, which was Metal Eden. Metal Eden, I'm excited for. Metal Eden feels like sci-fi Doom. Looked really pretty, like looks super chaotic, and you're kind of running around the space and doing all this cool stuff. That game looks like it's going to be fire. I'm hyped for that. Metal Eden looks really, really good. What else dropped? Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye looks weird. Mind's Eye looks like it could be really good or it could be really generic. I feel like Mind's Eye is probably one of those games that feels like a AA game, but also you can see they're trying to pay for a AAA budget. I don't know. Like, they went and did a small gameplay segment, and it just looked real clunky. It looked, all right. I'm hoping that it's good. Ex-GTA folks did it. Leslie Benzies, who I feel like, when they talked about it, it wasn't the name that jumped out to me that was like, oh, Leslie Benzies. Like, that wasn't the person. I was like, oh, I know exactly who that is, and they make dope stuff. So if other people are, hyped for it because of their connection to it, that could be very cool. I need to play it and see what the story feels like and things like that. Like, it'll be interesting to see where it lands and what it does and what genres and understandings it's trying to kind of evoke. But it didn't immediately give me that, like, oh, what is this? Like, oh, I can't wait for that. It was not that. It was like, well, this seems like this is kind of interesting, but you have to do more to kind of like make that jump. And lastly, the game that definitely rocked my socks and has me being the most excited is Saros, coming out of Housemarque with Rahul Kohli as the main protagonist in that game. Shout out to Rahul, who's a very dope person in real life. Anything that's connected to, Housemarque, anything that's connected to the world of Returnal in any way, I am absolutely here for. I think it's going to be a banger. I am just like, please, please, please let me know more about this game, because conceptually it looks really, really cool. And I think Rahul is just brilliant. Like, he's a brilliant actor. He's super, super dope. And for him to be in this game, that automatically just raised my level of excitement for it immediately. And plus, Housemarque is one of my favorite developers of all time. So Saros looked like a banger too. So, state of play was decent. I think if I were to give it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. I just think that there were a couple of big games in there that made me excited for what it is, but all that stuff is coming out in 2026. The games that did get me excited were either known properties or offshoots of stuff that we knew were kind of coming. But I don't know if I came out of it with the same level of excitement that I did coming out of the Xbox showcase. I was hoping for that, and it just didn't necessarily hit the level that I was hoping for in that conversation. I think, I don't know, like, I'm not expecting them to do, like, I don't have an expectation for them to do a GTA kind of thing. That's not going to happen. GTA will, Rockstar will do their own thing specifically. But, the games that were there that I did have some excitement for, I'm there for it. I just didn't. I was hoping that they would have a full, like, banger of banger shows, and it underwhelmed a little bit, but not in enough of a spot for me to be like, oh man, they messed up. So, shout out to Sony. I think they did a pretty decent job. When I think of it as like, it was a decent showing for what they have coming, and I hope that they have more coming down the line that we can see earlier and see more of in a more kind of comprehensive way. So we shall see. So all that to say, Split Fiction is definitely going to be in my wheelhouse, and I am fiending to play more of that thing. There are a couple of games in that showcase that did really, really well, and I think were fantastic, and I hope that they come out, and everything else was kind of okay. It wasn't something that we were all going to jump around and be like, oh my God, they ended it. They did it. They made it happen. It was very much like, oh, okay, that's cool. We'll see what happens. when it drops. Thank you everybody for coming through tonight. I'm sorry again, I've been sick. If you're hearing some pauses in the audio, that's me literally hitting the cough button. So I'm not breathing snottiness all in your ears while you're listening to this thing. I'm gonna go take some drugs and get rested up and feel a little bit better, and hopefully feel better. Hopefully soon during this weekend. It's snowing here in Portland, so we're gonna be stuck in the house for most of it. It'll be easier to kind of feel better when you don't have to run around and go do stuff. But thank you to everybody who rolled through tonight. I see a lot of newbies, and also see a ton of regulars in here. TDH, User Pick, Love You Fam, Arctic, Wheelie, I have to talk to you soon. Game Over, thank you for rolling through. Sparks, Arctic, and some other amazing folks who dropped by to watch the show tonight. This will go up on Mondays. You can go check that out during that part of the day. I'm still rolling through a couple of different reviews. One that I can't talk about, Pirate Yakuza that I'm playing. Avowed again, like check out the review. I love that game. That game is fantastic. I started a new character to go back in there after making my first character, who I named Jalen Brunson. So Jalen Brunson helped me throughout all of Avowed in my review. And again, we're in the early parts of 2025. There's a ton of stuff coming, a lot of things happening very, very soon. And starting to think about if we can do Spawnies for next year, for 2025 or 2026 as well. So if you're in that space and you're a sponsor, we'd love to talk to you about being a part of Spawnies. So all that to say, much love to you all. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Please, please, please go have fun. Go check out the All-Star game. The NBA All-Star game is happening this weekend. Go check that out. And be safe out here, because it's a wild time in the US of A. So I hope you all doing well and staying safe and having fun and being good to each other. So until next week, we say peace and hair grease.